Okay. So Victoria, let me ask you, what was the administration of the NAR's response when this verdict came down on Halloween last year?
So I have a big issue with this. I know you and I talk about it all the time because NAR just kind of let everyone believe that they were going to appeal. And I know they had a very good team of attorneys, despite what everyone thinks. They really did have a very good team of attorneys, the best that money can buy. And I can't imagine that their attorneys did not advise them and tell them we're probably not going to be able to appeal this and win. And yet they came out and said, we will appeal. And they had everyone believing that this would be appealed and that everything was going to take years and years and nothing was going to change. And they were going to have this turned around. Well, right after member dues was due, right? That was around January that they came out and said, "Oh, we're going to appeal December, January." Then after everyone paid their dues, they came out and said, "We're going to have a proposed settlement now." Interesting.
And our dues funded that half, 200 million out of 400 million. So I paid to settle the case that I never created. Worse, there was nothing to appeal. And they used the appeal word. There was no decision. And on top of that, they used the word, I mean, let's get hyper legal and technical now. They talked about appealing a decision that didn't exist. And they talked about appealing before any of the post-trial motion practice occurred. So how did they know they weren't going to win their motion? I mean, so the lawyers are this top level, best that money could buy, the number one trade lobby in America. You think they had some schmoes? I looked at who they are, and it was awe-inspiring. You had the Hall of Fame attorneys. I don't know where people who had no idea. The best of the best. The problem was NAR's actions. Their policy, because of the federal court statute, needed the standard, where it's a simple standard. Was this policy in place? Yes or no? It's a per se standard. That meant that if it existed, it was violative. So there was no way to win. There's no way to win. On top of that, NAR's lawyers, they said they lost every motion and the trial, and they said okay to every juror, and they said okay to all the 5 questions that the judge and the court used to poll the jury, given the chargers. How, if they voted one way, they must vote in a conclusory, imposed liability. NAR's lawyers were stuck with the facts, but the NAR president was saying appeal before we had anything to appeal, and they had no idea the rulings that would come from their own motion practice. Now I ask you, this law firm had to tell leadership what's up.
I agree. I agree. Had to. They can't say that they didn't know any better because they were the top-notch attorneys. I mean, they definitely knew. And we didn't hear from the attorneys. We heard from NAR leadership.
We hear from the attorneys because it's the client's privilege. They can't talk. They can't speak out of school. They can't say anything they said. So NAR either forgot what the lawyers said. They just, temporary lapse of memory. They forgot it, or they didn't want to tell us what their lawyers told, what my lawyers told us. So they lied. They said appeal. And they also, when they said appeal, they never addressed the likelihood of success using a per se standard. Did the court err as a matter of law? And they also never said the procedural requirements, which this is a subject we all aren't talking about anymore, which was the bond. If you are $5.4 billion in damages, you got to bond through a surety company, $5.4 billion. They didn't have the money. They never could. This thing could have never happened. They didn't have the law on their side, and they had no procedural mechanism to bring it.
19 other lawsuits that were already filed at that point. So even if they were able to get through the first one, what would happen after the next one and the next one after that, and so on and so forth. So again, why
it was always void. It was void. And my problem with NAR and the president, I looked online, said the last time the president spoke was 6 or 7 weeks. Are you telling me in this volatile day by day movement with more and more suits, more and more settlements, more and more DOJ interest, we have 6? I mean, what should we do?
We're not hearing from leaders, but the agents and the brokers that are members of the National Association of Realtors are not even faulting the National Association of Realtors. They're actually looking to their local boards, their local board attorneys, their state board attorneys, and the National Association of Realtors for direction, and blaming everyone and everything else outside of who is really giving us
Yeah, no one is saying, hey, NAR, you told me to do this. You didn't tell me it's illegal. Now, but to save your own existence, you're telling me I got to do business the way I never did. And I got to tell nice people who never paid, they got to pay.
Right. But instead of blaming the association, we're blaming all the other outside forces.
We're blaming attorneys who had to go to bat for the people who were aggrieved by the organization's collusive violative actions. I mean, it's really upside down world.
Yeah. It's amazing that no one is questioning this. I really don't understand.
Well, we are. And we also have people.
But the masses have not really questioned this, and it's kind of disturbing.